Alright, in today's video we will be covering the first half of the Unit 1 test review. That will be translating expressions and evaluating expressions. Make sure you're following along with your own test review. Hopefully you've already done this so you can be checking your answers. Number 1, Andrea had 7 less than 3 times Mary's points. Less than is subtract. Remember that less than, you have to flip the order of what you have. So 7 and then 3 times Mary's points. 3 times Mary's points, we're going to write as 3m. Okay. Less than means you have to flip. So when we write our expression, it would be 3m minus 7. Number 2, the quotient is divide. Quotient of the cubed root of x and 8. The cube root of x we would write as that divided by 8, or you could write it in fraction form and have the cube root of x over 8. Number 3, the square root of the product of x and y less 4. A lot going on here. Start with the square root. Underneath the square root, we're going to have the product of. Product's telling us to multiply. Product of x and y. So underneath the square root, we have the product of x and y. Product tells us to multiply. So we have the product of x and y like that. Less 4 is minus. So our answer should look like that. Keep in mind that the minus 4 is outside of the square root. Number 4, Bill's buying bags of apples for $2, bags of oranges for $3, and bags of bananas for $5. How much does he spend? We do not know how much he buys. He might buy 3 bags of apples, 2 bags of oranges, and 3 bunches of bananas. We don't know. When we don't know something, we use variables. So apples for $2, we're going to write as 2a. Bags of oranges for $3, we're going to write as 3a. And then bananas for 5, we're going to write as 5b. Sorry, let me backtrack. Oranges are not going to be 3a. We need a different variable than apples. So oranges are going to be 3o. Okay? You can use whatever variables you want. It doesn't have to be a, o, and b. It could be x, y, and z. Whatever you choose. Because we're buying all this stuff, we're going to have to add it together. So the apples plus the oranges plus the bananas. And then lastly, the absolute value of the sum of a number squared and 24. So we'll start with the absolute value of the sum of. Sum is telling us to add. Because we've got absolute value, rather than the parentheses that we have here, we're going to use the absolute value symbol. Inside the absolute value symbol, we're going to have a number squared, and we're going to have 24. In between them, we have the sum, so it would be plus. All right, still translated, but here we're going from algebraic expressions back into words. So number 6, we have multiplication here. So this would be the product of 4 and a number squared. Here we have minus. So a couple ways we could write this. We might write 20 less than 5 times a number. Or you could write the difference of 5 times a number and 20. Multiple ways to write all of these. And number 8, we have 6 times the cube root of the product of 2 and a number. And then in number 9, we have 1/2 of the absolute value symbols. So we got the absolute value. And inside the absolute value, we have additions. So it's the absolute value of the sum of, we have 3y, so it would be 3 times a number. And then we also have 7. So that's a little bit lengthy. 1/2 of the absolute value of the sum of 3 times a number and 7. Moving on to evaluating. Okay, please get in the habit of putting these values in parentheses when you substitute them in. So for number 10, we have 3 parentheses 4 squared minus 2 times -1 times 4 plus 4. I would like to see you guys put this into the calculator, but you can also work it out by hand. Here we have the answer is 60. In 11, we have the absolute value of 4 times 1/2 minus 3 times 1/3 plus the absolute value of 3 times 1/2 plus 1/3. You could report your answer here as a decimal, as 2.83 repeating, or you could report it as a fraction, which would be 17/6. Okay, number 12. This one you really have to use parentheses, or the negatives are going to throw you off. Plugging in should look like that. And if you do it correctly, you should get 14. Here at number 13, we've got the cubed root of 2 times 4 divided by 6 minus 4 plus 4 times 4. And if you do that correctly, you should get 17 as your answer. Okay? If you want to see the video on the simplifying radicals half of the test review, click on part 2.